I've got your question pulled up here. I've thought about this and how I want to reply to it before actually getting on here and recording this. You're going to see some links below to some resources that we have to help guide you. Granted, your situation is a bit unique. I don't want to say unique in the sense of I never see it. I do see it often, but it's not the majority of the people. Meaning, you're kind of on a vegan focused type of an eating plan, which just naturally is going to make it much harder for you to meet your protein need as opposed to someone else who's more open to even eating fish or eating eggs or eating um, dairy, even if it's not cow's milk dairy of another source. It's naturally going to make it just more challenging. And it's important to know that ahead of time because oftentimes people will feel like, well, what am I doing wrong? Why is this so hard for me? And it's not a conception, it's not an intellectual thing. It's simply the restriction that makes it tough. And that's okay. It's not impossible. The other thing that makes it a little bit harder for you is the quality of protein. We have, as you know, many foods have proteins. Nuts have proteins, grains have protein. There's a variety of different foods that have proteins, but the quality of that protein is dramatically different among each food. And when I say quality, what I mean is its ability to be digested by the body, not necessarily whether or not it's good or clean or anything else. It's really its ability to be digested by the body. Vegan proteins are very hard to be digested by the body compared to animal-based proteins. And so what that means is that even if we give you a calculation based on your weight of what your estimated protein needs are, yours are actually much, much higher than that because you're only absorbing a fraction of the protein because it's plant-based. So if we were to estimate your need and your need, that calculation were to say, okay, well, you need 100 grams per day, and I'm making these numbers up, you might actually need 125, 130, 140 grams just to get an absorbable 100 grams. Now, the other thing that makes this really challenging is that the best plant-based proteins, the plant-based proteins that are the most readily absorbed by the body, are ones that you don't like. Soy, tempeh, some of those other things. You did mention liking one type of protein that is absorbed fairly well, which is protein powder. And frankly, that's about your best option to get a good dose of protein in one shot. So I think that that's the number one thing to first of all highlight is that this makes it makes it extremely challenging, not because of your understanding or anything like that, but more because it's just hard to digest those proteins. So let's look at this. So here we are, got the main goal. We want to increase protein to goal. Second goal is, of course, to climb Kilimanjaro. Three main things that you need to know about this. Number one, you do not need a lot of protein while hiking. Protein's main responsibility is recovery and repair of the muscle. The doses that you're mentioning here are to grow the muscle. So yeah, while you're training, while you're at home, while you've got the ability to have higher protein needs, then you would want maybe 1.7 grams per kilo of lean body mass. But when you're out there on the trail, number one, that's extremely hard to get. Number two, you don't need it. You can get by with lower amounts to recover the muscle, and that's exactly what I would suggest that you do. Aim for something more along the lines of 1.2 grams per kilo instead of the other. Number two, you want to aim for even distribution over the three meals. So one of your main questions was, okay, should I eat that in the evening to recover my muscle? Should I eat it at breakfast to prepare the muscle? The answer is yes, yes, and yes, and yes. One of the main things we know about protein, besides what I've already mentioned, is equal distribution is the best thing that we can have. We want to think of it like a small leaky faucet rather than a fire hydrant that goes on and off, on and off. You want to have equal distribution, some kind of protein at breakfast, some kind of protein at lunch, some kind of protein at dinner. Your thinking's right. Yeah, you want some at breakfast to prepare the muscle. You want some in the evening to recover it while you sleep. But really what you want is a dose. You want to be almost bathing your muscle in little bits of protein over the course of the day. So should you eat it at breakfast? Should you eat it at dinner? Should you eat it? Yes, 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 and yes, as much as you can. And then finally, I'm going to give you some attachments. I'm going to give you access to a course that we've built on protein, help explain some of what I'm talking about here, some articles that I've written on it on how to increase it. Now, you're going to have to modify some of those articles to fit your needs. And what I mean by that is sometimes I talk about here's how you get 30 grams of protein in a meal. It's X portion of ground meat, or it's X portion of chicken breast, or it's X portion of fish, or it's X portion, all of things you don't eat. So you're going to have to fill in the blank there for the foods that are acceptable to you to eat. And again, making note of the fact that it's going to be a little more challenging for you because of the limited options there. For someone who eats anything, right, they've got 30 different ways they could meet that protein need. The options are potentially endless. For someone who's a little more restrictive, that's okay. It's just going to be really, really, really tough, perhaps boring to get to that need. So don't need a high dose during the hiking. It is good to have a decently high dose during training, assuming that you've got normal health and healthy functioning organs otherwise. Even distribution over the course of the day. It is going to be more challenging as a vegan because your body doesn't absorb those proteins quite as well. And you've got a really limited amount of things that you actually enjoy. So hopefully that helps. Do not hesitate, though, to send me some questions if you have them. Be more than happy to answer them. You can send those to the email that we were corresponding at earlier. If I don't hear from you, have a great hike, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks again for your patience.